The choices we make around food don't end at the dinner table. They show up in our focus, our energy, and even our creativity. Joining us today is Adam Kingl, author of Executive Eats, to talk about the connection between nutrition and performance.
Welcome, everybody, to Difference Talks. I'm Barry LeBove. This is Marcus McMillan. We are part of the LeBove marketing, training, and consulting team. We have a guest today. He's going to introduce himself, and we're going to dive into the program. And this is a program about how we can fuel our performance. So, Adam Kingl, share a little bit about your background. This is an encore performance because you have joined us before, and it was a top listen for people across the world. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Barry. And thanks for having me, Barry Marcus. Great to be back. I'm Adam Kingl. I'm an author, an educator, keynote speaker. And I've written about all kinds of different topics in the business world. I'm an adjunct faculty at a number of business schools in the UK. But this is really exciting new topic for me with this with my new book, Executive Eats, which comes out in just about a month.
We're going to focus right now on this. I know leaders, executives, performers, and by the way, everybody in the audience, this applies to everybody, not just executives, but I know people like that. And Adam, they are junk food junkies sometimes. They fire up the caffeine to get themselves going. Some of them I know sleep 2 or 3 hours a night, and that's it. And here's your book. And it's saying, if you want to perform well, you've got to pay attention to what you're putting inside the body and what concentration. So tell us the genesis of this book. And if you can, start to give us a little bit of the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of people now talking about how we can think about ourselves as, if you will, corporate athletes. So think about all the same questions that an athlete would be asking themselves: sleep, hydration, and nutrition. And this is where I'm coming. I'm focusing on nutrition. And the reason for that, the genesis of the book came about a couple of years ago, where I direct actually a healthcare program for executives at Imperial College London. And one of the experiences we do in that week is we go to a professional kitchen, but it's located at Imperial, actually. It's in the chemistry department. It's very odd. You'll be walking down the hallway and it's a faculty office, student lounge, lab. Oh, kitchen. A fully kitted out professional kitchen that's run by my colleague, Jakub Bredzakowski, who used to be a Michelin restaurant chef, did his PhD in molecular biology. He's a biochemist. And so we bring our group in, and he and I got to talking. We realized we're both foodies. So way back in the day, and I'm talking, mid 90s, when I was going to grad school at UCLA, I thought, well, I'm going to need to earn some money here. So I went to a cooking school for a summer, which became the Cordon Bleu in that location in Pasadena, California. And then I worked in a kitchen in an Italian trattoria in Brentwood. So I sort of somewhat earned my culinary chops. Jakub, my co-author, much more than I have. But we realized that we are foodies. And we thought, you know what, there's a book in this, which is just about all the different states of executive performance, be it sustained energy or mood boost, etc. And we can talk about the science of what you could put in your body to give yourself a competitive advantage in each of those states, followed by 10 recipes. So what I just described is basically a summary of each of the chapters in the book.
Nice. Adam, I guess for those that are not foodies, those that enjoy food in a different way, as Barry pointed out, right? What are those tips? So how do you get excited about this, and maybe speak to the kind of the professional business performance that we're after?
Well, the first obstacle, I think you just highlighted brilliantly, which is that some of us just kind of don't like to cook very much, right? So I said, sure, I love food. I love takeaway. But of course, what we're proposing here is, yes, of course, if you're traveling or you go to your company canteen, you might be able to still select what you eat around the advice.
Sure.
But we're also doing something different and actually encouraging people to do a little bit more of their own cooking. I'm under no illusions that people are going to make 3 meals a day for themselves, 7 days a week. No. However, there are a few things you can do. Like for example, make one of the salads in the book. Make a big batch and bring a serving size every day, for to the office, for example. But there's another reason, and this is actually related to performance itself. We know from research from University College London that people who cook tend to improve what we can call mindfulness. And it's through the repetitive action, through learning a craft, through using your hands. And we know this improves mindfulness. Now, why should we care about mindfulness? Well, actually, that can reduce our blood pressure. It can improve our concentration. It can improve our mood. It can improve motor function. So there are all kinds of benefits to being able to be focused on something other than the stresses and strains of work. A lot of people do different things, whether they go jogging or they do sculpture or they paint, etc. But this is another one. The benefit of doing a little bit more cooking in our lives is we immediately can get the advantages of that. In other words, we consume what we create as well. So it's two birds with one stone.
One thing I think is really similar to what you're talking about is Honor Health in Scottsdale has a kitchen that it opens up to its patients. And it's a brilliant concept that Dr. Shad Marvasti, who is a podcast guest of ours and a good friend of mine, has created, in that what you said earlier, which is, it's not just eat this food, but how about let's learn how to prepare it.
Yeah.
Let's learn how to enjoy the act of actually not just consuming, but creating something. You actually have a sense of accomplishment when you create that meal, that dinner, that snack. Now, here's a question for you from a leadership and performance standpoint. Was there anything counterintuitive that you learned as you created this book and did your research? Anything that was surprising and you thought, my gosh, I would have thought it would be different, but this is fascinating.
Yeah, there was one of the states that's in the book originally was not in the plan, and it's because it emerged as we did, research of the literature, the leadership literature, and then talked to other people in this rather narrow field, and that was innovation and creativity actually can be enhanced with cooking. The idea that some of the techniques that chefs use to enhance the creativity in their menus are things that we can start applying in the kitchen and then transfer that to our work lives and our personal lives for that matter. For example, there are a couple people that I talked to even on my previous book, Sparking Success, which is about innovation. They're two kind of East-West chefs, let's call them, Anita Lowe and Bobby Chin. They're have spent a lot of time in North America. Bobby's also a judge on Master Chef or Top Chef in the Middle East. And one of the techniques that Bobby uses is he creates he says combining things that we wouldn't ordinarily consider go together. So, for example, in one column, he'll write things like things that we all kind of know about cooking, like tomato sauce or using the Cuisinart, etc. But then on the right, he will include things that are maybe unusual or maybe ingredients that we don't usually work with, like, I don't know, wasabi or guava or etc. And then he'll just start making lines between products and items in those columns. Now, not each of those is going to work, but all of it opens up your brain, right? To be creative, to be innovative in combining existing ideas in new ways, which is a classic creativity technique. Now, the reason I say this transfers is it's actually a habit that wires your brains to start using that in other media and in other contexts. So if people start creating dishes using that creative technique, among others, they can use those at work as well. And their brain, their neurotransmitters are now literally wired to be able to do that. So the corporate example would be, for example, on the left, write down some naughty and I mean Knotty, not Naug, to problems and issues that you're dealing with, grappling with, whatever it might be. And then on the right, just put kind of random things that inspire you or excite you or interest you. It could be anything. It could be people. You could write Steve Jobs, or you could write concepts like impressionism, etc. And then again, make those lines. And you say, for example, oh, how would Steve Jobs tackle that naughty opportunity or problem that I'm grappling with? And again, it opens up your brain. It gets you stopping to think just in terms of precedent and whatnot. So by using cooking as a creative medium, what we've discovered is it's also quite useful to learn some habits that you can apply in your professional context to be a more innovative and creative person.
I mean, we do a lot of stuff where we creatively concept and use mechanisms that help bring creative thinking out, and more so than we would on our own. It's kind of compounded. So I love the idea. I'm certainly no chef, but I do enjoy the craft of it, and I like the idea and how, as you put it, Adam, you can be iterative and very quickly, and you quickly understand if it's a flavor profile that works or it doesn't work, right? So you can bring that into your manufacturing, technology, creative environment. Now, on the flip side, though, Adam, what are those things that are signs where it's not working, right? From a leadership perspective, what should we be looking for when things are like going awry? And it's like, okay, we've got to get the train back on the tracks.
Yeah. Well, it might be using a different technique, alone. Sometimes we fall into the habit of saying, well, either we just rely on precedent, and that's a very common, because in many cultures, we at least partially define leadership as an extrapolation of our experience, which means that somehow we're supposed to have all the answers no matter what. Or we might learn one technique, like what I just described with the columns, but maybe it doesn't work all the time.
Yeah.
So you have to have other ways to kind of jar your brain to think about other manners in which you can crack a problem. However, you mentioned something which is very important, and that's persistence. Because of our time-pressured corporate lives, we sometimes assume that I'm going to try something new to work toward a solution that hasn't existed before. And if I don't get that perfect solution after attempt one, it all goes out the window. This is never going to work, and I'm a failure, and we're a failure, and my self-esteem is shot, and I'll just resign now. Versus maybe you have to have several options to consider before you start judging any of them. As a matter of fact, this is referring back to my previous book, but I talked to one of the head writers of the TV show Friends, Andrew Reich, and he said something very interesting. I said, how many ideas, that come up in the writer's room actually show up on screen? He said, it's about 1 in 20. 1 in 20. And then when I think about when I teach innovation and creativity for corporates, it's about the same ratio, actually, when we're doing creative exercises. People have to brainstorm often about 20 ideas in order to find that one nugget of gold that they will then kind of implement or explore further. Persistence, patience, and recognizing that you don't always get it right the first time is alone a valuable habit.
One thing that I mentioned earlier regarding honor health, and Shad Marvasti, the doctor, he has a chapter in his book, but it's very similar to what you're talking about, Adam. The chapter is Food as Medicine, which is a very, very common approach in Persia, as an example, where his family came from. And you're really talking about the same thing. We're talking about utilizing what we're putting inside us and how we're doing it to help us be happier, healthier, and better performers. So when we come back after break, we're going to get into a little more nitty gritty. I'm going to throw a few scenarios at you and say, okay, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. How do I prepare for that? So everybody, we'll be right back on Difference Talks.
Difference Talks is a LaBeouf production. Our focus is differentiation, and we believe it's more important than ever to differentiate your brand and experience. Contact us at labeouf.com for a conversation. We'd love to connect with you.
Welcome back to Difference Talks. We are talking with Adam Kingl. We're talking about food as medicine. His book, Executive Eats. It's a must buy. It's for all of us. It's about performance. It's about happiness. It's about health. And it's an area that we overlook. Adam, there are significant challenges and scenarios in our lives every day. Can you share how we can tackle those better and face those better based on the nutrients that we are ingesting?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one really key state that we see all the time is, how do I sustain my energy better? We usually find the day feels like a roller coaster of peaks and troughs. The peak usually comes from caffeine or sugar, followed by the inevitable plummet in our energy and our ability to concentrate. So what the literature in nutrition and health tells us is just a few things that we tackle in the book that can help any professional. One, of course, is low GI carbs. Now, any sugar is actually a carb, but we're talking low GI carbs, which is a steady trickle of those sugars, which sustains our energy over time and enhances our cognitive focus over time. So what should you be eating? Whole
Right.
grains, lentils, chickpeas, legumes, basically, fruits, non-starchy vegetables like leafy greens, peppers, cucumbers, asparagus. Another area that we often don't talk about in relation to energy is protein. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm a carbs guy. I'm a protein gal," whatever. Actually, stop thinking just in terms of your palate and think about how to help promote sustained energy in your body. What we know is that people who often feel that they're low energy actually aren't ingesting enough protein. Now, the good news is, you might say, "Well, I'm a vegetarian." No problem. You have nuts, tofu, lentils, chickpeas, etc. All kinds of things contain the protein. But also, how do we then make sure that we're absorbing, at a slow, steady pace? So fiber is another thing that we often don't think about. Now, we all know about oats and how oats are full of fiber. A lot of people start their morning with oats, but then they kind of don't eat anything else, which promotes their dietary fiber. But there's so many things: berries, avocados, beans, apples, nuts and seeds, carrots and peas. And there's one food hero nutrient that I need to highlight. And that's something we really don't think about, and that's magnesium. If I could encourage your listeners, if there's kind of what has emerged in my research into the book, an ingredient that came up over and over and over and over again for different states: concentration, mood boost, energy, magnesium. It's required for energy production in our mitochondria. So at a cellular level, it's promoting our ability to think, for our brain to work more effectively, and to enhance, therefore, our mental acuity. And magnesium is in so many different things: grains, black beans, dark chocolate. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I have just given everyone permission to freebase dark chocolate. It's low in sugar anyway, but you've got to be thinking 70% cocoa or higher. So the great news is, this is never a limiting thing. This is not saying, well, if I need to improve this state, I all of a sudden need to make sacrifices, and I now have to eat avocados all day, every day for the rest of my life. Not at all.
Adam, I mean, I love avocados, so that would.
Oh, there you go. So you're fine.
I'm good. And honestly, all of those are my favorite food, which is tacos. It's like, just stick to that.
Everything.
And I think that shows so much of the positive side of where we can really optimize what we're doing. I mean, a great buzzword for business, but a incredible buzzword for our body too. And what a neat way to look at each other as athletes, even a professional landscape. That, how do we optimize our mood and boost that at home with our family, kids, and then we bring that same feeling into the office, and it's very positive. So I love that. We're all probably going to listen to this and go, fantastic. And it's lunchtime. Okay, I'm going to go have that energy drink, and then I'm going to go have, a cheeseburger and with a bunch of okay. But tell us what's really happening if we do ingest that, if we are doing that as and we're not following these things, what is happening? And how do we know crash is coming?
Yeah.
What are the signs?
Well, the first thing, you feel the crash at a very physical level, right? You feel like, oh, all of a sudden the energy just swoops
Mhm.
out of my body. And the problem is that's accentuated when you're hitting the energy drinks,
Mm.
when when you got the coffee in an IV, et cetera, right? That absolutely, then you aren't doing all these tips that we talked about. But actually, there are leading indicators that that's going to happen before you get that crash. And it's concentration. You will know a good 30 minutes before that energy crash that you have an inability or a lowering ability to concentrate. Just as, I wouldn't ask anyone to do, complicated algebraic equations when they've been awake for 23 hours, right? Because you're exhausted. Well, the same is true here. We as professionals, we need to be able to concentrate as effectively as possible for as long as possible. And as I said at the very beginning, there are lots of things that we have to do to facilitate that: hydration, sleep, exercise, etc. But the nutrients really do give us a boost, give us a competitive advantage. And often it's just about choices, right? Am I going to do the energy drink, or am I going to have actually, a taco? Because tomatoes, black beans, lean ground beef, peppers, amazing. All the food heroes I talked about before are in those, are in those ingredients. And it's much more tasty. Let's be honest, with ourselves. I think there are lots of food myths that I've heard people say, well, Adam, what I do, I have a very effective tip. I will not eat poultry for lunch on a work day. Oh, so why don't you? Well, everyone knows turkey and chicken has tryptophan, and that makes you sleepy. Okay. Tryptophan does not make you sleepy. Tryptophan stimulates serotonin, which is a good mood hormone. It's often why we feel happy when we have our turkey dinner at Thanksgiving or Christmas, whatnot. The reason we are sleepy after the same Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner is because we ate too much. And so, it's all the energy in your body is rushing to your stomach to help you digest this massive, unprecedented amount of food. Turkey and chicken, lean poultries are great things to be eating to help our concentration and to keep our mood stabilized and helpful and happy. You talked about the corporate athlete. That's true. What do athletes do besides what they're doing physically? Mentally, they're going onto the field or the track and they're visualizing good things, right? This is going to be a great day and this is how I'm going to do it. And we can help ourselves by thinking about how do we do maybe some of those same kinds of mental tips and tricks. One other that I'll just mention right away, because people generally don't know about this, is HDL, so-called good cholesterol, in avocados, olive oil, etc. The reason I say we don't talk about it much is we do talk about it, but only in relation to heart health. And that's true. But did you know that HDL is also great for the brain? So for mood boosting concentration, it helps our neurotransmitters. And this is more recent research, actually. So I'm not surprised that people don't know this. This is much more recent, that it actually helps our brain, that very delicate organ, to mechanize more effectively. So if you already are eating more avocados and extra virgin olive oil for your heart, great. You know what you're also doing is giving your brain a boost.
It reminds me of creatine as well, which has been used for decades and decades for better performance with athletes, but they also found cognitively it is a very, very positive supplement for your mind. Final question for me, and then Mark's going to do a wrap up. Whether a person is young or not so young, whether they're a top level executive or whether they're somebody that works or has a lot of fun in their life, but they're not looking at themselves as going to be the next top executive. A lot of times you'll hear, I don't have time. This isn't the right moment for me to be focusing on this. I think I'm doing okay. What is your charge to them, Adam? What is your inspiration to get them to rethink that and improve the way that they take care of themselves?
Uh, a quotation that I always come back to, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it comes from a work philosopher. Who knew there was such a job? Well, philosopher on work, the late Studs Terkel. And I love that
Sure.
name. And if I am to be reincarnated one day, I want to come back and be named Studs Terkel. He said, we have a right to expect of work that it is more than a 9 to 5 sort of dying. We have a right to expect of work that it contains astonishment, joy, and life. And so how we take care of ourselves in order to make our work life a life worth living, even a small investment has to be worthwhile of a few minutes of our day.
I guess to wrap up, Adam, one thing that we like to ask is the question of the best day. What is your best day, Adam? And typically it's a day, not that you're just lounging around all day, right? And maybe it's playing golf or doing some activity like that, but it's really what we've found is a day where you feel challenged. What does that day look like for you? Maybe there's some really great nutritious food that you're enjoying. But what does that day look like?
Yeah, well, you're right. I often think about what breakfast should I be eating based on the day I'm going to have.
Sure.
You know but if it's a typical day, and a typical day will involve my leading workshops or delivering keynotes to professional audiences, I know I'm going to need to be up, both in terms of my energy, but my sort of how I present myself and my mood. I need to be focused. I need to be able to answer questions clearly. And I need to inspire, which is probably the hardest thing. So it starts with, so what should I be eating? So one of my go-to breakfasts, and I imagine this is not uncommon for a lot of listeners, is a bowl with bottom is yogurt, over the top is fruit, usually something like bananas and berries and apples, and then granola. So I'm getting the oats, I'm getting the dietary fiber, I'm getting the magnesium, and I'm getting the protein. And that sets me up. And also just from a physical perspective, or from a tummy perspective, I should say, I eat that, I'm not hungry, for at least 4 hours in the day. So I can just go and not think about, God, when are we going to take a break so I can have a cookie? By the way, I don't recommend eating a cookie during the break. Not that I haven't occasionally indulged in the cookie. And then that day, I'm blessed because my day involves helping people be more effective, live their work lives better. And so I consider it a good day to have that opportunity. I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Like that.
Yeah.
The way that you put that, Adam, is really powerful in that if you focus on the right area in the beginning of your day, breakfast, could be lunch, and you take the time there, you don't have to put that time, that weight, and that stress later on.
Right.
That's taken away from all the other things that you need to do. And it's like you said, number one, inspiring your team or other professionals. That's really powerful. I think that's, shows a lot of doing it right then, so you don't have to mess it up later on.
Yeah. So I don't have to compromise and
That's
make
right.
up for it later. Yeah.
I like it.
Adam, we're all about differentiation. We have a book about it. Our company works with clients all over the world, differentiating what they do. In a few sentences, your book, Executive Eats, how is it differentiated from books that might be out there either on performance, leadership, cookbooks, food, nutrients? How does it differentiate itself so that our audience is excited to get out there and buy that thing?
Yeah, it's a great question because it is neither a generic cookbook, nor is it a sort of, generic book on executive performance. What we're saying is that nutrition and the mindfulness that comes with cooking in their often quiet and personal ways can be antidotes or practices that restore energy, sharpen focus, steady mood, and spark creativity. So we're not just saying that food fuels us, it shapes us. And we talk about a lot self-awareness for leaders, for professionals, really for any of us. And nutrition is one more piece of the puzzle to make us whole.
Fantastic message today, everybody. Executive Eats, Adam Kingl, Kingl.
That's it.
Please find the book. It's out on Amazon. Fantastic opportunity. Marcus and I thank you today. To our audience, please think about this. The food you eat does not fuel you. It does far more. It helps guide you. It helps energize you. So until next time, thank you for listening and or viewing Difference Talks.
Thank you for joining us on Difference Talks. All of us at LeBeau are proud to celebrate great people with inspiring messages. Difference Talks was created, produced, engineered, and performed by the LeBeau team. Even the music is original. Contact us at lebeau.com to learn how to differentiate your brand and give your team a sense of significance and meaning.